welcome to the Open Mic Comedy Podcast. I'm your host, Marc. If this is your first time here, welcome. If you're a returning listener, welcome back. This podcast is here for everybody on the open mic comedy circuit, whether you're a comedian, an MC, a promoter, or even a tutor. Hey, even comedy fans who enjoy watching the stars of the future in those dingy pub basements we seem to inhabit. If you're thinking I could do that, then this podcast will guide you on what to expect on this crazy circuit from those right in the middle of it. Today's guest can deadlift a car, surprisingly. If you see him walking out of Oxfam with a bag of ladies' shoes, just give him a hug. He claims his dad's a toucan and his mum's from Easter Island. He's also a G&B regular, so please welcome to the stage, it's unmistakable, Charlie Firth.
Oh, thank you very much. It's a lovely introduction.
How you doing?
Yeah, I'm great, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. I think we'll have to address the ladies' shoes later for anybody that hasn't seen your set, because it's going to sound really weird.
It. I don't want to leave that out of context, really.
So what's new?
No, not much really. I'm sort of, as you know, I've been away for a couple of months. I did some traveling at the start of the year, get that out of my system, and then back gigging with some success.
Good.
I had a bit of a rough one last night, so not all success. But back gigging, it was really interesting actually. I sort of, while I was away, I was like shocked at how much I missed comedy. I thought it'd be like, people said to me like, oh, are you going to do any writing or anything? Are you going to think like, try and come up with new stuff while you're away? And I was like, no, I'm not going to. I'm just going to take it to relax. And I couldn't keep away from it. I just, you see like other people on social media and stuff. You go, wow, that looked like an amazing night. So I was shocked by how much I miss it. So it's really nice to be back, actually.
Cool. So where did it all begin for you? Because you're quite young, aren't you?
Yeah. Well, I'm 25. Yeah, that feels
disgusting.
Old to me.
Disgusting.
Yeah, so for me, it's quite a long and not very interesting story, Marc, so I'll try and keep it brief. Basically, I was like, when I was at school, the only thing that I was sort of slightly like kind of good at was like the drama and acting sort of stuff. But I was still like, even in like when we did school plays and stuff, I was never like the main part or whatever, so I wasn't that good. But we used to do, in my primary school, we used to do pantomimes, like at the end of, like before Christmas. And I loved them. And I was all right at them. I was...
Acting the fool.
Yeah, well, yeah. So I was, one year I was Prince Charming in Sleeping Beauty, obviously. And then another year I was the Emperor in the Emperor's New Clothes. Which they were both sort of like they're both sort of like pompous, vain, self-obsessed characters. I don't know what that says about me at 8 years old, but and I had to walk out in front of the whole school in my pants, which was once you've done that, open mic comedy seems like a bit of an easy ride, to be honest. For whatever reason, I thought when I got told I was going to be the Emperor, I thought they were going to give me one of those aprons. Do you know the ones I mean? With like a sexy body on.
Oh, yeah.
That's just naturally where my head went. So I was like, they're not going to actually make me go out of my butt. There we go. So I did that. I knew like I could do, like, I liked doing comedy stuff, like comedy acting and stuff. Didn't do it in secondary school out of fear. You just can't really do anything to differentiate yourself in secondary school. But I did do GCSE drama, and I liked the comedy stuff in that. And when I got to uni, I knew they had I went to uni in Southampton. I knew they had a comedy society there. And I was there for 4 years. I had my eye on it for like the whole time, but only really plucked up the courage to do it in my 4th year.
Right.
Didn't tell anyone that I was going to go, because I was living in a house with 7 blokes, and I felt if I went along,
God.
It didn't go so well, and it wasn't so great, I would be hearing about it for the rest of my life. So it's like, I'm not going to tell anyone. If it's rubbish, then I won't. I'll just forget about it. But it was good. It was like, it's not a very big society. There was only like 8 people. But I went along with the intention of doing a bit more like acting and stuff, like sketches. Weirdly enough, I went along like saying to myself, okay, we're going to go and do this thing, but the one thing I'm never going to do is stand-up comedy.
Right.
just because it was like, it's that fear thing. It was like, if it goes wrong, it's just me on the stage. Like, if you do a sketch, you can walk off sketch and it's rubbish. You can walk off stage and be like, oh, who wrote that? You can't really do that as a stand-up. So I went along for a couple of months, and then one time I went to this workshop, and like all the other people were stand-ups. They were doing this exercise where they swap sets. And they were like, well, you're here. Why don't we just give you a set from someone and see what happens? I was given a routine by a guy who was he was a gay Malaysian guy. And it was all about being a gay Malaysian guy, like in Britain, and that coming out of my straight white mouth was quite a funny thing to be talking about. But I did it. I enjoyed it. And they were like, well, why don't you just write something and come and do one of our gigs? And I was like, oh, okay. So I did. I guess the weird thing about me is that my relationship with stand-up begins at the very moment where I decided to do stand-up comedy. Because I've never really been much of a stand-up guy. I've never really been a massive fan of it. I was like, I like comedy, but I like sitcoms and I like the panel shows and stuff like that. But for whatever reason, I'd never put it in my head that I was watching these people that I really liked on panel shows, and never been like, well, they do stand-up comedy. Why don't I watch them do that? So I agreed to do it. I did like 3 weeks of like revising. I just YouTubed any stand-up I could think of, watch their stuff to try and get an idea of what it's all about. Because I had no idea, like, really what a stand-up routine sounded like. So I went along. My first gig was at the Hobbit in Southampton, which is a really cool venue, actually. Obviously, I was doing it surrounded by a bunch of people who'd done it a lot, and everyone had a miserable evening. I was on in the second half, and it was not going well, to the extent that the audience weren't even really paying attention to what was going on stage. Like, people were having conversations with each other, like, while acts were on. And like experienced, seasoned people, like, coming off the stage with like they're sitting down with their heads in their hands. I was like, okay, I'm probably not going to kill here. But I guess it was a good lesson in like tempering expectations. Do you know what I mean? Like, you go to some nights, you're like, okay, the audience isn't really here for this, so let's figure out what a win looks like. A win for me that night looks like, can I just hold their attention? Like, can I stop the audience from having a chat to each other, like, while I'm up there? And I managed to do that. There were a few like titters. Listen, it was an awful set. I would be embarrassed to have performed that. Like, if I had it written down somewhere and I found it, I would go, oh God, I can't believe I went up there and said that. But that was it. And I came off stage, and I was like, as I walked off stage, I remember thinking to myself, like, wow, it would be amazing to do that, but well. And that was it. I was hooked. And my first sort of year of stand-up was, I graduated and then I live in Reading, so I kept driving back down to Southampton every month to do the Comedy Society shows, and then started doing some of the open mic places around Southampton. And the rest is history, I guess.
So how long ago? So you're 25 now, so that would have been how many years ago when you first got on stage?
I first did it in May 2022.
Okay. So you're coming up to 3-year anniversary.
3 years, yes, yeah. God, it must be really soon, actually. Yes, God, that's so crazy. And then weirdly enough, like, so as I say, this Comedy Society that I was in was not very big, and they go up to Edinburgh each year. So because it wasn't very big, and because I'd done a stand-up gig, they were like, do you want to come up to Edinburgh? And I was like, yeah, all right. So my second gig was at the Fringe.
Oh, wow.
Which was a bit of a baptism of fire.
I bet.
But really cool. Like, God, what a cool event. Saw so many cool, because like, it takes like an hour a day to do the gig, and then you're just free to go and watch everyone else do their thing. And that was great as someone who, as I say, didn't really know stand-up that well, to actually go and see some stuff and be in the room and be like, oh, this is how it works, and this is what like amazing stand-up and amazing comedy looks like. So I think that was really good for me. So
how many gigs have you done now then?
I've lost count, But I reckon I'm at over 100 now. The thing with me is like, obviously I live in Reading. So like when I come up to London and do it, I get home at like, the way the trains work, I end up like getting to bed at like 1 a.m.
Yeah.
So living here, I can't really do it that often. I'm like moving up to London in the next couple of weeks to try and gig a little bit more without destroying my brain. But so it's like I've been going a long time, but actually the gigs aren't that condensed. So I reckon it's over 100 now.
Okay.
Around that mark, yeah.
There's always been, I've always thought this would be quite interesting, is you mentioned first sets. Nobody ever wants to do their first set. I think there should be a night where everybody is forced to do their first set again.
That is such a good idea.
It'll be hilarious to see, and especially in an environment that's friendly and stuff like that. And it would be good to see how a comedian's mannerisms over the years have changed.
Yeah.
And what they can make out of that first set. You know, not just recite it word for word, but they do the premise and everything stays the same, but they've got their emphasis and the way they act and stuff on stage. And can they make it something to be proud of rather than something to look back on and go, God, that was awful.
In my case, I'm sure my first set is somewhere in the notes app on my phone, like buried deep.
Yeah.
And I remember the sort of jokes that it was. I think my basic interpretation of stand up at that point was like, stand up is sentences that have funny endings to them, like endings you wouldn't necessarily expect, rather than a joke, which I think has come to be my least favorite form of stand up. So I think even if I went back to it now, I think I would struggle to make something decent out of that. But I agree that I think it'd be really good to go and to do something like that. I think it'd be a really interesting exercise.
Yeah. I mean, we've seen like G&B recently do the swapsies.
That sounded amazing.
Yeah. I would love to have been there to do somebody else's. Just turn up and do Declan's set or something else like that. Quite frankly, I could do Declan's set without learning it. I wouldn't even have to learn anything. It's a shame that because that looked like a really good, and as I said, that's like the first stand up I ever did was swapping sets. So I was like, that'd be really cool to do. The image of MJ Hunter dressed as Kyle alone. Oh God.
Absolutely sent me. I was sitting around for Easter lunch at my aunt and uncle's house and just started laughing. Hopefully they do another one. I'd love to go along to that.
He's got to put that out as a video. He has to.
And I was at G&B last night. I was at the Royal George, and Carl was talking about something that MJ did as like a twist on his "Compete for My Love" bit that he does. And he didn't expand on it. I was like, I really want to know what that was. So hopefully like on the G&B YouTube, we start seeing stuff like that, because that would be so cool. Yeah,
that would be great. So come on then, let's go through the your best and worst moments on stage.
Okay. Best is difficult because I've not really like a lot of people like come here and talk about like competitions they've done really well in. I always do rubbish in competitions. I don't really have anything like that. I would say best, there's two. The first time, so I as I said, I started gigging in Southampton. I was doing this sort of like university gigs for a bit, and then I got asked to come along and do some gigs at the Attic in Southampton. I don't know if you've heard about that.
I've heard
cool
of it.
Room, really cool room.
Do they do music there as well?
I think they do everything. I think it is a recording studio, and then the loft is like a stage area.
Right. Okay.
But yeah, it's a cool place. So I started going there for a bit, and obviously you tell your friends you're doing stand up, and they're like, "Oh God, can we come and watch it?" And for about probably more than 6 months, I was like, no, because I am not very good at it. When you're sort of driving down for like an hour and a half to go and do gigs or whatever, you sort of want the people you know to feel like there is a good reason that you're doing that.
Yeah.
So I was waiting till like I had a set that I was really happy with. And it was like December, maybe November 2022. I actually got something that I was like, yeah, this feels like it's me. And it also feels like it's actually funny.
Yeah.
So I invited a few of my friends along to the Attic in in Southampton. I think it was like, maybe it was January 2023. I got so lucky in the sense that it was a really full night. Like the place was absolutely packed. I think it's probably, it's quite a big room, the attic, and it's probably one of the biggest rooms I've ever played. It was just there were so many people there. I think one guy had brought along like everyone he knew, which was an absolute godsend. So I went up. My friends tell me now, like, that it's the most nervous they have ever seen me. Like, I'm not a very twitchy sort of guy, but you know that thing that people do when their legs like are pumping up and down. I was doing that like crazy. I had a few beers to try and calm the nerves. That didn't really work. I went up and I started going, and it is. I did that routine for quite a while. It is by a mile the best that routine ever went. Yeah. And the relief of that, the relief of just being like, oh God, we're going to walk away from this and they're going to think I'm good at it. That was, yeah, it was a really great moment. It was sort of like, oh God, yeah, like there is something to it. There is, that I am doing this for a good reason. Like for myself, it's just like, oh, like this is what it's all about. This sort of big room. And so that was probably one of the best. The others, I would say there's been a couple of times where I've been headlining at the Royal George. Yeah. And the Royal George on Thursday is part of G&B Comedy. Those nights can be so amazing. It's such a great room, and it's the one that like 9 times out of 10 is really full. And because it's a Thursday, the audience are really up for it. So I had a gig last Thursday, which I think is the best audience I've ever seen. Helped by the standard of comedy, it was at the Royal George, and I think the first half of the Royal George last week is the highest standard of open mic comedy I think I've ever seen. I think you could have been easily fooled into thinking that was a pro night. People like Donald Vaughan, who I'm really glad is back in the UK now because he's just phenomenal. Yes. MJ Hunter, and I think Sonny Savage as well. I don't know if you've come across Sonny. Yeah. Just brilliant comedian from like, I think I saw Sonny's like 3rd gig and he was already fantastic. So he was headlining as well, which I'd not seen him headline before. It was brilliant. What I like about headlining is like you can sort of build off stuff that's going on in the night. Yeah. And last week was one of those nights where there's like a guy who's like this guy on the front row. Every comedian went up and was like, Jesus Christ, this guy is so good looking. So you can sort of work that into the set, and I managed to work that into quite a nice joke. There was some other stuff. I took the mick out of MJ Hunter, like everyone at G&B seems to do. Yeah. Poor MJ. So stuff like that, and it's I like it when it's something in the room because that audiences just love that, and it just goes really well. There's another one last September where I was headlining when the Royal George reopened after refurbishment. Yeah. I had a joke that I'd been sat on for about 6 months because I knew the refurbishment was happening. I had a joke about refurbishment of the Royal George basement. It had been such a big theme like throughout the evening. And I had this joke and it just went so well. It was such a satisfying feeling because it's just like, I've been waiting for 6 months to get that joke out. So yeah, those are the best moments. Just when it's going well, and from minute one, you know the audience are on side and you know they're with you, and you can just sort of relax a bit and have fun with it. Yeah, I would say those are my best.
So going back to you were talking about when the audience, the guy in the front was really good looking and everybody's doing that kind of thing. Are you planning that out whilst off stage, going right? Okay, I can make a joke about this, or is it built when you're on stage and go, fuck yeah?
No,
it's all pre-planned.
Yeah, it's all pre-planned. I'm not that spontaneous because I think when I'm sort of spontaneous with it, I can stumble over my words. Yeah. At least when I have it in my head beforehand, I can sort of get it out clearly. But it was also sort of like places like where it can obviously go into my set. So like I have a bit where I transition from one joke to the other where I talk about my appearance. And if we've been making fun of a really handsome guy all night, like I can use that really easy and just sort of massage it very naturally into what I'm doing. So it's just sort of like where things pop up across the night and you go, oh, I could fit that in there. that could go in there and maybe that would work all right. And usually it does, because audiences just like that thing of like, oh, this is something that we experience. He's done that often. So yeah, that's always fun.
So what about the bad ones?
I got a few of those.
We all have.
Yeah. Well, first thing I'll say is blackout. I think I was very naive going into the blackout. I reckon I did it on about 25 gigs.
Yeah.
Which was too few. I don't know. When did you first do the blackout, Mark? Like, how many gigs were you on?
7.
You won 7? Oh my God.
But that screwed me over because I didn't get through, but I got to 4.5 minutes.
Wow.
So
you did miles better than me.
My brain goes, it only gets better. It doesn't get worse.
That's true.
The 2 times I've done it since then, it's been on 2 minutes. I've gone literally on the 2-minute klaxon. He's out.
Oh, that's so annoying. I can't have been further north of that. I think I was like 2 minutes 30 or something like that. I hate saying this because I think if you're good enough, you can do it. But I don't think I'm the sort of act that suits a gong show.
Oh, no, I completely agree. There's acts that take their time, and this is what I want to talk about with you about later, because you have this knack of pausing in your set and stuff like that. And if you do that sort of thing at the blackout, then it's people either think, well, what's coming next, and they're anticipating, or they're thinking he's forgotten, he's fucked up.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're in that situation where which person is thinking that is the one that's holding the card, and if it's the wrong way around, you're out.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing. Like, I wasn't really doing back then. I wasn't really doing the pauses so much, but I was still. It was the same sort of style in terms of like long build up. I can't write a joke that's like less than a minute long. Long build up, quite slow and steady. The other issue I had was I used to do a routine about it was just after my football club Reading got relegated, and I did sort of like a routine about being annoyed about that in a really stupid way. It was like Cardiff City, who stayed up in the Championship, had Reading. It was sort of like directed at Cardiff City / the Welsh in a sort of ironic way that I thought it was a bit cleverer than it was. That doesn't play well at a gong show. There's a bit of sort of about like the football. There's a football chant. There's a bit that I still do. There's a football chant that goes. Loads of horrible football fans chant "man or a woman," women in football grounds. And I sort of started that bit, and it's not really clear what side I'm on when I sort of set that bit up in that old routine. When I did that at the blackout, you could feel the room start to hate me. It was an awful, like, you could just feel it. And I remember thinking, where I was lucky in the blackout was that I was on in the second half. So even though I went into it naive, I watched the first half and I was like, oh, this is not going to go well for me. Yeah. So I sort of knew when I went on, I was like, I'm just going to have to do this and see what happens. So the room sort of split, and I did this is the worst moment I've ever had on stage. I did the rookie error of trying to reason with them. So I think like I felt the room like split, and I went, whoa, hold on, it's going somewhere. And I think about me saying that so often because it turns my stomach. I should have just got on with it and taken my medicine. But yeah, gonged off at like 2 minutes 30 or something. I think it would be harsh to say that's like the worst night I've ever had, because I think, and this is the thing with stand-up comedy, every time you fail, the learning you get from that is unbelievable. So I think I'd done 25 gigs at that point. I think I learned more that night than I learned in all those 25 gigs like combined. So it would feel wrong to completely write it off as like an awful thing that I never should have done, because I think it made me better at doing this. The only other worst moment I'd mention is I had a night this was back at the Attic. This was after I started gigging in London. This was a few months after the blackout, and I'd come up with this new routine about I hate this routine now, but it's about being born out of wedlock.
I remember that one.
You remember that one?
Yeah.
I went down and I did it in Southampton. And for whatever reason, and I knew this going in, right? I know that audiences hate it when I appear to be angry, like genuinely angry. What I've noticed, like from starting stand up, is like you watch videos back of yourself. I've got really harsh features. So I've got quite a long, like sharp nose. And like when I remember looking back at the video once and I was scowling while I was performing.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God, I look really angry. So I went down and did this gig, and for whatever reason, I did this routine, but for whatever reason, I did it angry.
Yeah.
I have no idea why. And the audience hated it. It's the worst death I've ever experienced. It was just nothing for 5 minutes.
Ouch.
And it's even more frustrating when you walk up off stage having had a bad night and you're like, that was entirely my fault. Like, I can't even. So I'd mention that one as well.
Okay, fair enough. So what is your joke writing process that you go through then? How do you write jokes?
I'm still trying to nail what I would call a process. Because I've tried every which way. So I've got the books. So I've got Logan Murray's book and I've got Sally Holloway's book that's sort of about idea generation and coming up with new material and sort of how it all works. I'm still sort of making my way through Logan's book. The reality is, and this doesn't sound great, but it sort of drops into my head. I'll just be thinking something through, and then suddenly it'll be like, but what if this? And it presents itself as a punchline. And that's not always the case. But certainly with like my opening bit about the weighted blanket, that punchline just came from somewhere. Yeah. The difficulty I have is I can get to a punch. I like building an idea around a punchline. So all my routines, like I won't do it unless I know that there's a really good punchline at the end to land on. Yeah. Because it's like somewhere safe to go. Like even if the audience don't like the build up, and I know there's something at the end where they can go, okay, that was worth waiting for. So the difficulty I have is making the build up to the punchline funny and engaging. And the way I would describe it is I have moments. So if you take that weighted blanket bit, there's a big punchline at the end. There is one joke before that in the preceding minute and a half that you could call an actual joke. Mm-hmm. And then there are various moments where the audience are invited to laugh. And if they're a good audience, maybe they'll do it. If they're a bad audience, it will be a sort of rather than a laugh, which is frustrating. Because as I said earlier, I struggle to write a joke that doesn't have a really long build up. And I've tried. I came back from being away this year, and I was like, okay, what I'm gonna first try and do is I'm gonna take my material that I usually do, and I'm gonna try and punch that up. So I'm gonna try and add actual jokes to it, so that I can. The real thing I struggle with is winning the audience over in like the first 30 seconds. Like my big punchline is like a minute and a half into the routine. Which is not good. So I did this a couple of weeks ago. I tried to write some jokes, and in trying to punch these routines up, I ended up punching them to death. It's actually really interesting because the good jokes were still there, but they didn't work because the jokes before them, A, weren't very good, and B, they didn't really suit me. They weren't really my sort of style. Yeah. Whereas like the stuff I was doing before, it might not bring the house down, but it does set a precedent for like what I'm all about and the way I go about my business on stage and the sort of comedian that I am. Like they know what to expect and they either buy into it and they go for it or they don't. Yeah. Whereas with just doing bad jokes that don't really suit me beforehand, they just instantly go like, well, no, this is a bit generic. B, it's not very good. C, I don't really get an idea of who this guy is. So it was a really interesting lesson. If you try, it's good to try these things. And I sort of knew going into them that these things, they weren't really me, but I thought I'd give it a go just to see if it could work. And it didn't. But So I think now it's just sort of whatever the process will be. Just going to try and pick a subject and write on it. I know what sort of material works for me. It tends to be personal. There tends to be a sort of performative element to it. So long setups, obviously. So it's sort of knowing that, writing about like personal subjects, like in my life, picking out like, this is the thing the Logan Murray books like taught me, is its attitudes. So the first step of writing a joke is what is your attitude towards this subject? Like, how do you feel about it? Preferably something really specific. So picking up those attitudes and then trying to put them into a story, and because that is at the end of the day what all my jokes are. They're little or long stories. So trying to work that into a sort of narrative and then trying to twist it and play around with it. So yeah, that's the process, if we want to call it that.
Yeah, because I like the difference between what you do and what a lot of other people do, especially something like what I do, is I tend to put a callback right at the end. You do little callbacks as you go through.
Yeah.
And I always like that. It's when it's the, I don't want to give too much. You talk about the weighted blanket, you talk about the shoes, you talk about the girl, and you can deadlift the car or whatever. And how can you do that? Oh yeah, we're not going to go into that. And you've done that. And I think that's really clever, because it doesn't feel like joke. It feels like this is a complete story that is entwined and doesn't feel forced in any way.
That's good, because I do worry that the thing I worry about callbacks is they do feel forced sometimes. Yeah, I think if the punchline is worth it, then why not? Like, I like that punchline, as you say, the bit where I go, oh, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I can. I just think that's like funny. But
it's
it's like it's because I have to do that sort of thing, because I literally can't get laughs any other way in the build up to stuff. Like I just can't write those sort of like quick jokes as sort of asides. So yeah, I've just got to take them. I just got to get the laughs wherever I can find them.
Hi there, I'm Reb Day from episode 36, and I do apologise for this interruption of the Open Mic Comedy podcast. Every week, one comedian painstakingly takes us through their journey into the comedy world, and even though it might sound like they hate talking about themselves, they actually love it. And I hear you asking, how? How can I, a person with the ability to listen to podcasts, give back to those whose idea of a good night out is being applauded at and praised? The answer is simple. And the answer is brilliant, because it's free. All you need to do is give the Open Mic Comedy podcast a like, a follow, and hey, maybe even a 5-star review. Thank you so much for listening to the Open Mic Comedy podcast. I've been Reb Day. Let's jump back into the episode.
So is the persona of you on stage the same as the persona off stage? You know?
That is an interesting question. In a way, I've been really trying to work on persona. That's what I really tried to work on last year, trying to figure that idea out. Because the other book I think we all read last year was the Adam Bloom book, which is just phenomenal. Like, to anyone listening to this who doesn't have that book, go and buy that book, because I don't think it feels like a coincidence that I've sort of made a lot more progress in comedy since picking up that book and reading it. But that idea of persona was something I was completely missing. I was still in that mentality of like, oh, comedians just like say funny stuff or whatever.
Yeah.
That idea of like, and it was sort of like a big thing for me. It was like, oh my God, like that's why I find all the comedians I find really funny. It's because I'm laughing at who they are and how they are as a person. So I tried working on that a lot and playing around with that a lot last year. Is the persona of me different? I don't know. It's quite hard because the thing with that Adam Bloom book, right, is it's like you need to define your persona in three words. That's how you know you've got quite a strong persona. Yeah. And I can't do that, but I can't do that for me or anyone else. Like I don't have the vocabulary to do it.
Yeah.
It's like you take someone like Declan Evans, like from minute one that I saw Declan on stage like a couple of years ago, his persona was there. Like it's so obvious who he is.
Yep.
It's so obvious like what he's all about, and that the persona is like so palpable. But I couldn't put it into 3 words for you, and that's sort of like that makes me feel a bit better about not being able to do it myself. But I know it's like a feeling. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if I come up with a joke, it'll either go in my head, it'd be like, no, that's not you. That's not the sort of thing you do. Or yes, that is you. And that is the sort of thing you do. I'd say my persona probably is quite close to me. I think I am quite sort of like, what do I do on stage? I'm sort of like quite casual.
Yeah.
He doesn't really get het up by a lot of things, the comedian Charlie Firth. He's not very animated. I only really get animated about like football and stuff like that. So, and I think the comedian Charlie Firth is quite happy to make light. The theory I've got about me as a comedian at the minute is that, because I quite like to think about like why I'm saying the stuff I'm saying on stage. Like, why is this guy up there talking about this stuff? Why is he telling the audience this? My theory at the moment is that it is him using his shortcomings and failings in life, and he's taking it to a place where that is a good thing, where that gets a positive reaction. Like he says how like he's a massive loser and he has to buy girls' shoes, whatever. And that is funny to the people in the room. That's a place he can go where it's like, it's really good to be a loser here. This is where it's like being a loser is quite cool.
Yeah.
I would say that probably is quite close to me. I think it's probably like the way I like joke around with my friends and stuff is like sort of that sort of thing. So yeah, it's interesting. It'd be interesting to see how that sort of like develops over the next year and whether that changes.
Yeah. Because you come across like, as you say, the storyteller role. And I experimented last year with doing sets sitting down.
Oh, wow.
And I'd always thought that would suit you quite well.
Yeah, that's true, actually. I never thought about that.
And just even if you didn't sit down I was sitting down for the whole thing, and it worked wonders for how I could deliver and how I felt in the room. And even if you've got somebody that has a stool on stage that sits every so often and then gets up and walks a couple of steps one way and then goes and sits back down again. I think that kind of, it reminds me sort of when you're in infant school and it's story time. And the teacher's sitting there and everyone's watching the teacher sat down telling a story.
That's such a good point.
And I think that's how I would see how you could progress with that kind of thing. I think that'd be quite fun to see.
Yeah,
it might not work. But
it's interesting. It's interesting. I have done a gig sat down before. I was at a gig. I got invited to do a gig by another comedian, Connor Yates. I don't know if you come across Connor.
I know Connor.
Yeah. I think I did he used to run a night, and I think I did the last night that he did it, and it wasn't a very full room, so like all the comedians just sort of decided to just like take it a bit easy, and there was a stool on stage, so everyone just did it, sat down, and I did feel a bit natural. Like, you're right, it did feel like the sort of thing that I would do on stage. That is interesting. That's something to think about.
I primarily used it because I never knew what to do with my hands, and I was always kind of wary about, because I noticed you do the same thing. You grab the mic stand, and start pushing it down and pull it up and just and all of that just to distract. And I used to do that, and I went away from kind of using that as an anchor. And then I felt a little bit lost, and I was like, And I tried it once in like a rehearsal space with somebody, and I just sat down and told a story, and somebody said, that just feels more you.
That's really interesting.
You're like, okay. So then I did it on stage a couple of times, and I was like, this is quite cool.
No, cool.
And it also kind of, I always get kind of like not nervous, but my heart rate and the adrenaline starts to pump before I go on stage. Yeah. And that would bring my heart rate down because I'm sat down.
Oh, interesting.
Make me relax. Weird, but
that's cool.
I don't know if I tried it in the right rooms or what, but it worked, and it was
nice.
I did a night. It was the start of this year, and I didn't really go with any material. I was kind of like a bit bored of what I was doing, and I've always had a story I wanted to tell.
Cool.
But I never knew I never knew the right environment to tell it. And because it was a story, we was in the pub where the night was going on, and I thought, I might get a stool or something and just sit down and do it. But then there was nowhere really to put a stool because they moved the tables all to the back of the room behind the comedian. But then for some reason, somebody moved 2 tables apart in front of a window. So there's a windowsill. So I kind of just took the microphone and just sat on the windowsill.
Oh, wow.
And spoke for 7 minutes, and it was getting something out for the very first time in front of people that had a few laughs. It didn't have a lot of laughs, but it had people engaged and listening. It was like, okay, I can build on this now.
Yeah. And because you were on stage and because you were doing it for the first time, was like with the adrenaline, was your brain like naturally taking you to places where you thought you could get a laugh? Like, because I always wonder about that. Because like, as I say, the stuff I go on with stage is always like very well prepared. Like I rarely do anything off the cuff. The idea of like, I think it's Bill Burr who does it, who just like goes on stage with a couple of ideas and is like, it'll happen on stage. I'll create it on stage. Did you like feel yourself going in that direction where it's like, I could say this, or
but
interesting.
The thing I had behind me was, because none of it was really prepared, as in zero, but the story is a true story. Every part of that story is 100% true, so I can't forget it. But I can then, as I'm going on, as I've gone through this story in my head loads and loads of times, it's like, that bit was kind of funny. That bit is kind of funny.
Exactly.
And it's like, how can I pull the funny out of that to make other people find it funny? Because there's that whole thing where you can tell a story, but if nobody laughs, it's just a TED talk. The idea is still to be funny. But I actually went and sat on the windowsill and said, look, I'm going to talk to you for 7 minutes. I've got no idea if this is going to be funny or not. So let's just see what happens. And it was that kind of night where it wasn't like a G&B night where it's trying to make it look like a comedy show.
A real,
It was one of those where just go up and try.
Yeah, cool.
And just went up and tried, and it built the basis of the next set and routine that I did. And it was kind of cool. And I'm very thankful that I got the chance to try it like that way. And kind of thankful that I had nothing prepared and went, sod it. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, that's really cool. Because I have always been interested in doing something sort of like that, because I don't know about you, but like when I come off stage after doing like a normal gig, that sort of like 5 or 10 minute buzz afterwards is like, with the adrenaline and stuff, that is like the most creative, that like ideas sort of like come at that sort of point. I don't know if you're the same. I'm sort of like stuff, well, I should have said this, or I could have said this at that point. And you go,
all the time. And you just go out and go, what? I missed that obvious joke in the room. I missed it. How, why, what? And that's where I think I try when I do my sets, and it probably comes across that way, is that I'm not overly prepared. I'm not word for word. If I am word for word, if I get thrown off by something, I find it hard to go back into
get
it.
Back onto the word for word bit, yeah.
And my brain's going, I just need to get back into it again. And then you then look disjointed from the room. Whereas if I'm a bit more relaxed, and I can mess about with that and then try and weave back to where roughly I was. Rather than trying to aim to get back there, if you see what I mean. And like
that makes total sense.
You shut up. I'm telling a story. No, it needs to be.
Exactly.
So the whole thing on stage is just, I've always thought about trying to do something different and primarily have fun. Ultimately, this is a 2-party transaction, you and the audience. One of you has to have fun. If it's you and the audience don't, at least one of you's had fun. But if both of you hate the 5 or 10 minutes you're going through, forget it. But no,
absolutely.
I find when I come off stage, I have this like relief that it's over. But then I immediately miss it and go. I always find my best sets are the ones where I get 10 plus minutes or whatever just to be on stage, and I can relax into it. Whereas 5 minutes I find really hard to do.
Oh, don't get me started. There is a clear correlation between me doing 5 minutes and sucking at it and me doing it 8 or 10 minutes and having a really decent night. I just, and part of it is me not being able to write a joke that is less than a minute long. The audience are only really getting 5 jokes out of me. But I think the other part is you sort of got to like, once I get to that first punchline, and the difficulty is that first punchline is a minute and a half in. I think I've got the audience on side and I can sort of chill and relax a bit, because that is what I've been doing so far. So like last night I did 5 minutes. It didn't go very well. Part of that was me stumbling over my words a little bit, which was silly. But I think the other part is I sort of have to rush through some of the bit. I can't just sort of chill and go, whoa. Yep. And because I think that is what I'm best at, is like going at my own pace, building up that sort of tension through the long setup and through the pauses, for example, and then hitting them with a punchline out of nowhere after a minute. And that's, I mean, obviously that is brutal, because the idea of progression in stand-up and open mic comedy is 5 minutes, is gong shows, it's competitions. I've always sucked at the competitions. I've only ever done one gong show. I doubt I'll ever do another again. It is restricted. But you know, there's another part of me that's like, well, you know, that is the parameters, and you need to find a way of doing it in 5 minutes. Yeah. To get that progression, I've got a few like gigs coming up at the end of May, and like where I'm going for the very first time, they have no idea who I am, and I am a bit worried about it, because it will be 5 minutes, and I just don't know if it will be any good. Some nights it kind of works, some nights but we'll see. I guess it's just a matter of keeping working at it and trying to find ways to get laughs in, and keep the audience engaged, and get who I am as a comedian across to the audience while doing that in 5 minutes. But we'll see.
So with your like time on like the open mic circuit, then what have you enjoyed and what would you change? I really like the open mic circuit. I don't know if that's like common it feels like it isn't. But I have seen some mental stuff over the last 2 years that I would just never have been exposed to had I not been on the open mic. And it's interesting because like obviously you're doing it to become a better comedian, but also like I've learned so much about the sort of thing that I find funny, just from watching the open mic circuit. And it tends to be about personalities and who people are, and like, but also silliness. Like, one of my probably my favorite act on the open mic circuit is John Pape, which I've never seen him live.
Have you not?
No, I have never seen him do his stuff live in front of me.
Oh, that's such a shame.
He's obviously been on this podcast. He does a little advert read-throughs for me, but I've never seen him live, and it's so sad. It's got to happen at some point.
It has to. Yeah, I've not seen him in ages. But whenever I do, I mean, I've seen him do like 3 or 4 different. I've probably only seen him gig like 6 or 7 times, but I've seen him do like 4 different routines, and they're all so brilliant. And that sort of insane, sort of mad silliness, I absolutely love. Stuff like that has just been a joy to discover. But I think one of the great things about the open mic circuit is, and you don't really get this, I'm not sure you get this everywhere, but the sense of sort of community and camaraderie, I guess, and meeting really nice people. There's a really nice, like, I mean, obviously I'm a G&B regular. I only really do G&B at the moment. There's a really lovely community of people at G&B at the moment who I really get on with. I guess this is more G&B, but that freedom to sort of experiment and try new things, I owe Kyle a great deal in that regard, because I just wouldn't have been able to do this without G&B, quite frankly. He's been very generous to me in sort of allowing me to come along from outside of Reading and not bring anyone with me, and to have that space to sort of like try and fail and learn and grow and try and develop this sort of thing. I owe everything to G&B, really. And I wouldn't really, in terms of like the open mic, so there's not really much that I'd improve. I've got 2 suggestions, but they're not really fair. The first one would be like, and this is mainly for me, I really like getting feedback from people. So if you see me doing something rubbish or something that could be done in a different way, or maybe like a place you think it'd go, I really want to hear about it. Like I got this new routine where I sort of have to make like 3 jokes fail in order for the punchline to work. Right. And the first time I think maybe the second time I did it, it was sort of all right, but the 3 jokes failing bit didn't really work in the sense that they sort of failed, but sort of didn't. And then it didn't really work with the punchline. And it was Calvin Smith. Like I was having a chat with him afterwards. And he was like, well, why don't you just do it this sort of way? And I was like, oh my God, yeah. Yeah. Well, that's brilliant. Thank you so much. So that sort of thing is great. But I appreciate like that is an unfair suggestion because like loads of people are on the open mic circuit for like different reasons, right? So some people are there like just for a hobby. Some people are there like because they're going through something that they want to express like on stage in front of a group of people, and some people are there just to like get as good as they can. So it's not really fair for me to be like we should all be criticizing each other all the time. So I appreciate that something, but for me, if anyone sees something that they think I could do differently, I'm really interested. I would really like to hear that. The other thing I sort of wish about the open mic circuit is I really like stages. Yeah, I think stages make such a huge difference in the immersion of the audience because like we've all done those gigs where like it's in the corner of a pub. Yeah, and those gigs I've done to those gigs and they've been amazing, but I think a lot of the time they don't really work because the audience lose the immersion because like it's not a guy who's on stage, it's not an actual comedian, it's a guy who's just sat next to you in the pub and now he's on stage talking about, and I think the stage like makes that big a difference. Like just being a little bit higher than the audience is like, there's a big difference between like standing in the corner of the pub. Lots of people can stand in the corner of a pub in their minds. But I think in their minds, when they see someone on the stage, they're like, whoa, I could never be on stage. And I think that makes them buy in a little bit more. But again, that's not a fair thing to ask of the open mic circuit because like there are only so many venues that have that sort of capacity. So that's not really fair either. But those would be the 2 things that I'd go for.
I agree with the staging. I agree completely with staging. I think it makes such a difference and it makes it feel proper.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And it's just that little bit of effort of we don't want to feel like we're in a pub.
Yeah, absolutely.
It might be in a room in a pub, but we don't want to feel like we're in a pub.
Yeah. You want to feel like you're watching a show. It's something G&B do very well is really putting an effort in. It's a shame. I obviously the Royal George layout is so much better now, but I really loved that stage that they had in the corner there because it was so tightly packed in. Yep. So I mean, it is better now, but like that specific aspect of it, I do miss.
I get it. So where do you see your comedy career going now? You're potentially moving into the hub.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I just want to take it as far as it'll go, to be honest. And I think really, I just want to be as good at it as I can be. I just want to keep, and I'm not sure it's a matter of ever being satisfied with it. Because I don't think you get satisfied with it. Like, I don't think there's a set that's ever good enough that will satisfy you. It's just there's always going to be something that you're going to want a little bit more of. I think the thing is, like, I just love it, and this is what I realized while I was away from it for a couple of months. Was like, oh wow, this isn't just something like I do to like, I don't know, try and get a career out of, or just something to do on a midweek evening. This is something I do because I really, really enjoy doing it. Yeah. As I say, I missed it so much while I was away. But yeah, it's just a matter of seeing where it will take me. I'm going to try and go at it hard over the next year or so. See where that goes. But yeah, that's the long and short of it, really.
But any ambitions? I mean, getting on pro bills, things like that. Would there be an ambition to get onto TV?
I mean, yeah,
it's an ambition. It doesn't.
Yeah,
have to,
why not? Why not? I mean, as I say, like I just want to get as good as I can be, and if that takes me to that sort of place, then wonderful.
Yeah.
Obviously, yeah. Like in the next year or so, I want to be looking at pro gigs, sort of trying to get onto that sort of scene.
Yeah.
Difficulty is I've got to get that 5 minutes really firing, which we'll see. But I think over the next year or so, I'd like to start. I've got sort of stuff in mind that I want to achieve. I'd like to have like a really solid 20 minutes of stuff.
Yeah.
I think I've got a sort of solid 10 minutes at the minute. I don't know where another 10 minutes is going to come from, but we'll see. But yeah, and I mean, I think very much I'd like to do an hour at some point, and that's not going to happen in the next year. But I'd love to do a full show and put that together, and sort of, because that is the comedy I really love, is comedians who do full hours and a full narrative and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So people like Stuart Lee, James Acaster are big heroes of mine. So I'd love to do that at some point, maybe in a couple of years or something. We'll see what happens.
A Fringe show somewhere.
Maybe. Yeah, probably. I can see that happening. I really need to write some new stuff pretty soon if that's going to happen. But yeah, that's a definite ambition, is to do an hour, put that together, see how that goes. Probably do another one afterwards, to be honest. We'll see.
Oh, cool. So if things did go well then, and you ended up on TV, or you've got a special coming out, whatever, what do you pick as your walk-on music?
So part of me wanted to do a song called Black Magic by the Amazons, because that's what my team Reading walks out to at the SCL. Difficulty is what follows that song isn't necessarily good a lot of the time. I'd like to keep it Reading, but I think if I was like, I think if I was being true to my stand-up, there's a song I listen to before every gig that sort of gets me into the sort of mood. It's a song called The Kitchen by Sam Fender, and it's sort of like quite what's the word? I don't know musical terminology. It's got quite a decent beat to it. Sort of like it puts you in a sort of like space of like, oh, something's about to happen. Like, oh yeah, So I think if I was being honest with true to my stand-up, let's call it a career, I come out to The Kitchen by Sam Fender. Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. So we kind of touched on you did the Edinburgh Fringe. So any plans to go back and do that again in the near future?
Yeah, I mean, yes. I mean, when I say I did the Edinburgh Fringe, I did we did 5 minutes each in the corner of a brew dog.
That's doing the Fringe.
I guess it is. Yeah, that's probably very Fringe. Yeah, I mean, yes. Yeah, probably. The difficulty is it's a huge financial undertaking. Yeah. So I have to have a think about how that works. But yeah, I'd love to do that. It sounds like a really big challenge, and I think it would be a really interesting one to do. It sounds like sort of some nights you play to 2 people, sometimes you play to a full room of people. Doing that for a full hour sounds interesting. So yeah, for sure. I think I do. Over the next couple of years, I want to try and put that together. I think the way that will work is just writing an hour's worth of material, seeing what comes out of that. What I'm finding is usually, like, I've got sort of 3 sets at the moment that I like. And I think thematically they're sort of quite similar. And when I write other stuff, even if it's not very good, it's still on a sort of theme of like, not really sort of, I mean, not really feeling too comfortable with life or sort of happy about the way it's going and sort of like things. So there's something there to like spin into a narrative, I think, if we got to that point.
Yeah.
Hopefully that's, but I like the idea of treating your stand-up persona and like your stand-up as a character, right? So I like that idea of like, if you were to do an hour, across the hour, having like character progression.
Yeah.
My favorite shows, like the Acaster ones on Netflix and stuff. I know, obviously, like as a comedian, I'm nothing like him, but I like that idea of like unreliable narrator and sort of like talking about the comedian thinking it's about one thing, but in reality, it's all about another thing. So we'll see where we get to, but it would be cool to try and do something like that.
Yeah, because the other thing, we kind of mentioned it earlier, but delved into it, is that the times I've seen you perform, you started to introduce this pausing style. And
yeah,
I saw a video recently where you literally turned your back on the audience. Well, the first thing that you did, where you paused and you kind of put your head down and was looking really down. And I think half the audience thought, has he forgotten his set? Or what? What's going on here? And the second time was you actually literally turned your back on the audience and looked and was away from them. And I just wondered what the theory behind those was, and how do you define the amount of time you allow that to happen?
Yeah,
as well.
Okay. I'll start with the theory behind it. I like the way it builds up tension. That's what it comes down to, really. I like punchlines that sort of come out of nowhere. And I think if you inject that sort of pause into it, you sort of take the audience slightly away from what you've just been talking about, and you put them into a mindset of like, oh, what's going on here? Like, so like, for example, I mean, there's 3 punchlines that I do with a long pause beforehand. So
we should clarify that when we say long pause, we don't mean like 2 seconds and here comes a punch. We're talking what can feel like 10, 20, 30 seconds.
Yeah. the most recent one, the one you were talking about a minute ago, is particularly egregious. And that one is like a solid 30 seconds, which is maybe a little bit too much. But so like if I take the weighted blanket one, I'm not going to take the weighted blanket one because I don't really want to put that subject matter on on your podcast. We'll take the girl shoes one. So what I'm talking about in that routine is like, I'm living at home, but my love life isn't very successful. I'm not really bringing any girls home with me. So my parents don't think I'm very successful with girls. I have this bit. This is true. This is what I like. I like jokes that are based in stuff that is absolutely like true. Yeah. My mum sort of had a word with me when I came back from university. She said, like, if you bring a girl home, that's fine. Could you just get her to leave her shoes by the front door so the next morning I know there's someone in the house? And then so I set that up, and then I do like a really, like, I'm going to say it's 10, 15 seconds, like you say. And I look a bit, there's times where I've done it where I've sort of overacted it and looked too annoyed for my liking. I think it's better when it's a little bit subtle and I just sort of stare at the audience as if I'm a little bit annoyed. I make sort of like a gesture with my hand as I deliver the like last setup, which sort of suggests that I'm a bit fed up or something. I have a good stare at them for like 10 seconds. I try and like look at like most of the audience members in the eyes so they can sort of see where my head is, where like the thoughts that I'm thinking, which is like, this is a bit annoying to basically what I'm gonna say next is a little bit annoying to have to admit, that sort of thing.
Yeah. And
then I hit them with the fact that I buy girls shoes to make my parents think I'm doing a lot better with women than I am. And that's it, really. It's just sort of like, it's bringing that punchline out of absolute nowhere. I think that punchline would be weaker if I immediately followed the setup with it. And then the one you were just talking about at the end, like, that's sort of more a little bit performance-y. So like I talk, it's the bit is about crowd work and how I don't really like crowd work. And really annoyingly, I saw a TikTok this week from an American comedian on a podcast who makes the exact same point that I make in this bit. I don't want it to seem like I've got it from him because anyway.
That's why you should put more stuff on Instagram.
Yeah, that's true. I should have got there first. Lesson learned. But yeah, I talk about crowd work, how I don't like it. And I say that I think storytelling is way better than crowd work. I do a really crap story. And then I sort of get forced into doing crowd work, but I look sort of really upset for about 30 seconds that what I tried failed. And that sort of puts the audience in, like, it makes the punchline make sense, because it's like, oh, he failed at what he tried to do. So now he has to do the thing that he's just been slagging off for like five minutes.
Gotcha.
But it's tension, really, at the end of the day. So that's the theory behind it. In terms of the length of time, it sort of varies each night. Like in a 5-minute routine, there'll be a lot less long, just because I can't really afford to waste that time. But I think, like, it's sort of in the moment. I try and rehearse it and be like, this is the exact sort of time that I should be doing it. But when I'm on stage, it's sort of like in my head, it clicks. It's like, okay, now is the time to drop it on them. And that depends on the audience reaction. So sometimes, like, the audience is just completely silent. It's like, what the hell is about to happen? Other times there's sort of like titters, because they can see, like, my facial expression. They can see the sort of thoughts that are running through my head. So they're like, oh, he's obviously annoyed about this. That's kind of funny. And then you hit them with the punchline. So yeah, it varies. It's sort of, I guess that's the only thing that I go into the night unprepared with, is like that one's like, I can leave that flexible. Yeah.
But I did just wind you up a little bit about it. Instagram. As a comedian, you have the worst Instagram going. When you put something up, it was like, hallelujah, there's a post.
I got with the difficulty for me is, like, I only really have like 3 jokes, and they all take 5 minutes to tell. So I that's the problem with the social media. So I don't really want to post like 3 videos and be like, that's all, folks. I'm starting to, like, I think as I gig more often, like, more stuff will happen with the audience. So like last Thursday, like, there was a couple of bits that, like, happen with the audience that I can sort of turn into a clip. But I am going to try and get better at that.
I think it does help with progression, because I think people see, especially our level kind of starting out, it just gets you out there, people seeing you. And if you, I can't speak for everyone, but if you apply for nights and stuff, and they at least they see something, and that something is like, oh, I know what this person's like. Yeah, I think they'll work for my night. Come along, kind of thing.
Yeah, it's on the agenda. It's one of the things on the agenda to start doing more stand-up clips. I can see myself starting to do maybe some sketches at some point this year. I'm not sure, but I've got a few ideas for a few. I think I needed more ideas for more if I really want to nail it. But I do need to get better at that. It scares me, the online stuff. I'm a bit of a old head in that sense.
I get it, because there's that thing of if you mess up something on stage, it's only the people in the room that see it, and it's forgotten about as soon as the night's over. But if you put something up on Instagram or TikTok or whatever, and you just end up with a load of criticism, you're just like, great, cheers. Thanks. I think
it's the mentality you go into it. I think you've got to go into it like, I've done this, I've said this on stage, or I've made this in my bedroom. I think it's funny. I'm just going to put it out there and see what if you like it, you like it. You know, you can't go into it with that mentality of like, oh, this hasn't got like 100,000 views. What a mistake. So we'll see what happens there.
Cool. As we're winding down, it's my favorite time of the show. My favorite time. It's where I get to put the comedians on the spot with a challenge. As you've listened to a few of these, I know you know what's coming up. For those that are first-time listeners, I like to set every comedian that comes on here a challenge to tell a joke from this joke book. It's called The Little Book of Shit Jokes by Sid Finch. And the idea is that the comedians pick a joke from this joke book, tell it live on stage, film it, and that means post it on Instagram, tag us in it. and see how well or badly they do. It's only a bit of fun. But the trick is the comedians don't get to pick the joke by words. They only get to pick it by page number. So what they're going to get, we don't know.
It literally cannot be worse than the one Chris Alley got on his second go here. It just can't.
Yeah, that was confusing. I even made an actual Instagram reel just on me asking him that question. And then we both sat there and went, we don't get it.
If it's worse than that, I don't know what.
But if you want to give me a number between 5 and 95, and if you pick one that's already gone, then we keep going until we find one that's not in bed.
I'm going to go with 6th sixth page because I want Reading to finish 6th this year.
6. You have 2 jokes to pick from. Do you want joke 1 or joke 2?
Joke 1.
Okay. I think joke 2 would have been better.
Oh, no.
Joke 1. The joke I'd like you to tell on stage, film, record, and post on Instagram, tag us in it is, I called my boss and whispered I wouldn't be in as I had a wee cough. He seemed surprised you have a wee cough. Thanks, I said. See you Monday.
Oh, wow.
Oh wow. I'm so sorry.
What was it? Oh, you can't read the second one, can you? Because someone else might get it. Oh, wow. Jeez. That's terrible.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to put a really long pause in that one.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't even know where I could put that. Oh, this is a challenge. That's exciting.
And you've also got to kind of be Scottish as well.
Oh, geez. I can't really do that G&B either, can I? I can't really do that accent.
Of course you can. Hey, it could be your uncle.
Yeah,
it could be Uncle Kyle.
Yeah. I'll have a. Oh shit! I didn't even get the joke. A wee cough.
Yeah.
Oh I didn't even get it. Oh wow! You have a wee cough. Good to see you next week. Do you know what? Actually, that's less bad than I thought it was.
It's still shit. But the title of the book is absolutely apt.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Okay, that's exciting.
Mind you, I don't know. I'm trying to think if Declan's done his one.
You wouldn't really be able to tell with his routine. No, come on.
So, where can people find you then on the socials and stuff?
Well, get following because it's really good on there. It's at Charlie Firth Comedy on Instagram. Do you know what? I think I've got a TikTok page as well. There's nothing on there. There isn't. Go and have a look. I've got one clip. You can see the shoes bit that I've been talking about. I will start posting stuff so that there's something in it if you want to follow me on there at some point. Great.
And you can follow us on Instagram to Open Mic Comedy Pod. We've got a website, openmiccomedypod.com. Whichever platform you're listening to us on, please give it a like, follow, subscribe, and all that. Add a comment if you're on Spotify or YouTube. Lastly, I just want to say thank you for your time today, Charlie.
Thank you. This has been amazing. Thank you so much.
No, it's been great. I've really enjoyed today. Thank you. And for the rest of you, I will speak to you all very, very soon.